Hi, everybody. I have not done a live in a long time, but I thought it was a good time to do it because the Midlife Women's Group is starting. It's starting next Thursday, so not this Thursday, but October 16th. It's going to be a nice Zoom virtual place for coffee. You have to bring coffee. No, I'm kidding. You don't have to bring coffee, but I will bring coffee. Connections, friendship, and discussing midlife. So it's a coaching group, not therapy. This is a place where women can discuss the issues of aging and this stage of life, which is existentially quite difficult. You know, you are no longer a young mother. You are no longer young at all. And your relationships change, marriage, your relationship with your kids, your relationship with yourself. A lot of women start rethinking career and what am I doing with my life type of thing. And what is the meaning of all this? That's a big midlife question, whether you're male or female. But because I'm female, my coaching group is going to be for females because that's the experience that I know most deeply and haven't done it. You know, haven't done a midlife coaching group ever. So I'm certainly going to start with what I know. And obviously, we have coaches and therapists that work with everybody, and I work with men too, of course. You know, that's half my clients, and they're mostly midlife. But yeah, if you are somebody who's looking for your tribe, but you don't really like tribes, then it's for you. Because it's not, it's not some set thing. We're going to do the same thing every week or something. It's going to be more fluid and talking about the sort of topics that interest everybody. Whenever I do these lives, you can also ask me any questions you have and tell me anything that you wish that you had content on, podcasts or lives or whatever. I don't do much of these anymore, so this is a rare treat. And of course, you know, you should always join my Facebook secret group. People talk about their marriage, they talk about parenting, they talk about career. It's a really good place. You can just literally click on subscribe. It's the comment that's pinned to everything that I do automatically. So, anyway, I have some really cool podcasts coming up on the Dr. Psych Mom Show, which is available on Spotify, Apple, and everywhere. And if you're watching, say hello, tell me where you're from. That's how more people get to see these lives if you comment and you engage. So that's always nice when people say where they're from. I'm from Brooklyn. I live in Maryland now, so anybody else can do that. But anyway, I have a lot of cool stuff coming up. My new Otrovert thing. I'm really into the Otrovert book, The Gift of Not Belonging with Rami Kamenetsky. I'm getting that guy on my podcast. He said yes already, but it's not going to come out for a few weeks because I have like a lot of other things that are coming out. And there's new podcast episodes every 3 days on the Dr. Psych Mom Show. So maybe at some point I'll go back to every other day. Not right now. I got a lot of stuff. My kids are teenagers. It's just a lot of stuff to do. So, if you guys want extra interaction with me or with, I have one of my coaches is in there too, Kat Roebuck. You should definitely join the Facebook secret group. Follow me on all platforms. If you do have any questions, anything of interest, you can drop it here, or you could always just start a thread in the secret group. Secret group's only $5 a month, so that is your most cost-effective way to get more interaction away from the public crowd if you are not somebody who wants to talk during a live. What else? What else is coming up? So Laura Howe, if you guys know Laura Howe, she was on my show once. It's gonna come out soon. When's it coming out? It's gonna come out on the 20th. And I'm gonna have her on again because we didn't finish everything that we were talking about. So that's cool. So I had another great podcast today. Another woman talking about her menstrual tracking app and perimenopause and divorce and does menopause lead to divorce? And yeah, it does. But why, etc. So you know me, I always like to talk about the hormonal, biological, evolutionary impacts of everything. And perimenopause and menopause, it's a hugely transformative time of life for most women. And here's a question. Hello, Leslie. Leslie has a question. Second, Leslie. I'm dying here. Okay, coffee injection. What are your impressions of couples coming from different cultural backgrounds? Like anything, that can go a million different ways. You have another thing to learn about each other. So it's a shortcut. When you have the same common background, everything is easier in terms of knowing where each other comes from, what the expectations are, the norms around holidays, around family, around parenting. It's so easy. But just because that's easy, by the way, does not mean the marriage goes well. It's just like one thing that isn't usually that problem. Like, doesn't come up at all because you're in the same culture. So it's like the water that a fish swims in, it doesn't really come up. However, if you have the worst, by the way, would be a more family oriented person with preoccupied attachment, like who comes from a more family oriented culture, with a man, I'll just say a person, but usually I see a preoccupied attachment woman that comes from a more collectivistic culture and an avoidant attachment man that comes from a less communal culture. Well, then they're both amplifying their problem with each other, right? He basically says, "What do you mean we have to go hang out with your family?" And she's like, "What do you mean you only care about yourself and you think that weekends are supposed to only be hobbies?" So there, if the cultural differences amplify the differences that the couple has, obviously that's going to be worse. But if you get more of an avoidant guy from a collective, more communal culture, and more of the preoccupied person is from a less communal culture, then it kind of evens out a little bit. Because in that case, the avoidant person, he already knows, he's already used to family obligation. It's already part of his discourse or her discourse. But that doesn't, again, necessarily mean that they're going to be talking deeply to the partner, right? It just means that they understand family is important from culture. So, I mean, there's a lot can be said about this. And then, of course, when you raise children, whose culture is going to be preeminent there, how can you balance both? Nothing is 50-50 exactly. So somebody's family is going to hang out more with the children. Lots of issues. But, of course, plenty of couples come from different cultural backgrounds. So if you're securely attached and you have a positive perspective of life and relationships and love, it doesn't really matter. So many other variables don't matter because that's the core thing that matters. So it's a great question. I talk about this a lot with class. So when couples come from different socioeconomic backgrounds, how that impacts them. And if you type class into drpsychmom.com, you'll find that. And I think I have a podcast about it as well. I also have a podcast when your partner wants to jump socioeconomic class and you don't, because class and culture are very linked. It's a group. It's a group that you belong in and that you identify with. Unless you're an introvert, then you don't, as I've talked about introverts so much. But anyway, that can also be a bone of contention, is whether or not the partner wants to jump to the next socioeconomic class and work hard to make the money and get all the accoutrements of that, the big house, different cars. The other person doesn't. That can also be a problem. Lots of potential problems, unfortunately, as I know from my work with couples. So, great question. You can either ask me more or anybody else can ask me a question, anybody who's watching. I see 6 of you. That means 6 potential questions, which would be great. Of course, I'm sure that'll just manifest in 0 questions. But, at any moment, you could ask a question. And the other thing, Leslie, with culture is that it matters how old you are too, because if you meet when you're very young, then you almost you're used to it. If you meet when you're a lot older, let's say your mid-30s, your 40s, some of your expectations are really solidified. And when you're younger, you can maybe be a little more flexible. However, when you're younger, on the other side, you're also more beholden to your parents. Your parents are probably helping you still, so then you're pleasing them. There's just a lot of variables, and it's something that's discussed a lot in couples counseling, honestly. That and all these other differences in family of origin, expectations, only child versus siblings, oldest versus youngest. So much. There are just so many variables upon which couples can be different. And it's not always easy to be different. And that's why people tend to pick friends and partners very similar to themselves. Leslie says, are there resources you would suggest to navigate cultural differences? Yeah, therapy. Therapy would be good. I don't know of any books in particular about that. I'm sure there's a lot. I'm sure there's everything. I mean, people write about everything, but if you are struggling and this is a repeated issue, definitely that's the time to go to therapy, and then the therapist can help you navigate it, and also she could see it, or he could see it from the outside, and often it's not about culture at all. As I said, it's because the cultural norms are amplifying pre-existing issues within the dynamic of the couple. So a lot of times people say it's a cultural issue and they deeply believe it's a cultural issue, but it's not. Nothing is only one thing, and it's certainly not only a cultural issue. So I would definitely say therapy could be useful there. Good question. Anybody else have any questions? 7 of you. There could be 7 questions. Hi, Roger. What's up? Thumbs up to you. Every time that you... Oh, here's Tim. When working together, how do you divide work and personal? I have a hard time turning work off. It can cause problems. So you and your wife work together, you're saying, and you have a hard time turning work off. So then you come to her and you say, get out the Excel spreadsheet. I have some numbers. And she's like, but Tim, we're in the middle of making love. No, I'm kidding. But something like that, Tim, because that's yeah, it could be hard to navigate boundaries when you're working together, but it's also, most couples don't work together, and this is still a huge issue with couples, is that one works more than the other. One has a harder time turning off work than the other. And so you don't have to work together for that to be an issue. That's a major issue, is that people have different expectations. This usually, as everything, goes back to family of origin. How was work navigated in your home? I would look into that, Tim, individually. I would say, what did I learn about work from how I grew up? Was my dad always working? Was he a workaholic? Was it disappointing to my mother? And going back and seeing the origin of your expectations. Yeah, see, I nailed it. I knew it. But seeing the origin of your expectations about how work should go, and the relative prioritization of work versus home, of being in love versus making money, being in the family versus your responsibility to your clients or to your customers. All of this, it's very individual, and you may never have interrogated it. You might not even think there's alternate ways to do it. This is where coaching can come in. A lot of times people don't even see their stuck places. They think, okay, it's work. So I do work 100% of the time that I'm at work, and work looks like this, and work hours are this. And when I'm at work, and that's always how it is. And if somebody's not like that, then they're lazy, right? That's an example of a script that somebody may have in their head about work. Meanwhile, your wife may say, why couldn't somebody take off 2 hours of work if I have, let's say, an important doctor's appointment? Or to see, to pick up the child from school. The kids are only going to be little ones, etc., etc. So, and she may have to interrogate her assumptions as well. She may, this is all hypothetical because I don't know your individual situation, besides that you just corroborated that it's somewhat like what I'm saying. But she may have too limited a perspective herself on the other side, and not really understand that you do have to get certain things done. And you may have to work on a weekend if, for example, you're an entrepreneur. Of course, And so discussing those things more clearly and more objectively can really be transformative in that way. Instead of blaming each other, you think, where did we learn this stuff from? Where did we get our expectations around what work looks like versus family? This is the core work. Individual work is great. Couples work is great. Whenever there's a relational issue, you want to look inside first, because that could really expedite couples work, understanding what you bring to the table. So is that right, Tim? You could tell me more about your situation. As I said, anybody else could give me a question as well. And if you like this sort of idea of, oh, here's Leslie. I was going to say, if y'all like the question answer, you can always also join secret group and start a thread. I usually chime in on the threads. Leslie says, thoughts of couples where, this is just going to be like a big Rorschach test about your relationship, Leslie, right? Thoughts of couples where one person has children and the other doesn't. As a single person without children who has never been married, I'm having difficulty considering, what I can realistically expect. Well, That's a lot, right? So I don't know. I don't know what's going on necessarily. It really depends on the age of the children. So most men, you know, if he's like most men, as the children get older, as they're teenagers, he's going to be much more pro independence, their independence. He's going to facilitate them doing their own thing more. Men usually tend to value freedom and autonomy and want to inculcate those values into their children. But if they're little, there's only so much he can do, right? He loves them. He wants to be there. Men in this generation much more involved. That's great. And that means that he has a lot of responsibility and obligation during his co-parenting time. It's driving them to all their stuff, doing their homework with them, engaging with them, bedtime. I mean, it's like a whole vibe. If you tell me about how old they are, then I could tell you how much you can expect him to be present. But by the way, the time when he's not with the kids, which I assume is maybe half the time, but you can tell me, then he should be with you. If you're in a serious relationship, that would be your time to shine. If on the time without the kids and he's also always doing something, he's always has his hobby, or that's when he picks up extra shifts at work, well then, does this person really prioritize the relationship, you would have to think. There's so many variables, and adding children into the mix is huge. It can't be overestimated. That's the default. The default is hanging out with the children, and then anything aside from that, including a new partner, would be put in around the periphery of parenting. As you perhaps get more invested, then you would be living there. So then you would be together, or y'all would be living in a new place, right? So you would be there and the step parent, and then he would be there. When they go, you have your time together. But I don't know where you're at in your relationship, And it is hard to make peace with the fact that the person always has this number one thing. If you don't have it, if you've not had the experience of being a parent, then it can be a bitter pill to swallow to think that your partner always will put somebody else first, especially before the relationship is super serious, and then it kind of stops it maybe from getting super serious. Oh, early dating and the kids are young. So yeah, you're basically expecting him to hang out with you at least a large, I don't know about early, I don't know how early, but like if you, let's say, are dating for a few months, then on the weekends he's not with the kids, he would be seeing you, at least one night, usually 2 nights. If you're in an I love you stage. If you're not in an I love you stage, then we're putting the cart before the horse. You don't even know if you might be compatible with this person who apparently has cultural differences, children, an ex to potential. That is another factor to, co-parent with somebody. We don't really know what you're hitching your wagon to here. So I don't know if you're even exclusive. You should write some more stuff. You want more specific advice. All right, so anybody else have any questions? 10 people watching, so haven't done a long live with advice in a long time. And as always, this is not medical advice. This is just what I think on the internet, based on my experience of all these years working with people. Any other questions? I think I see some people I recognize up there. And anyway, when you're dating somebody with children, even if you have children, it's very difficult. It's difficult the scheduling. It's difficult. It could be very fulfilling, of course, to be stepmother to these children if you love them and you get to know them. But nowadays, people do not introduce the kids super early. You're going to have a long time, possibly before you meet them. So you got to kind of ask yourself deeply, is this life for me? Do I want to be step-parent deeply? Is that something I've yearned for? If you've never wanted children, it may not be. Like, you got to be kind of honest with yourself, especially when kids are involved, because then they get to know you. If they love you, then you don't want to, like, get to know kids if you don't even necessarily want to be there long term. Obviously, that's just commonsensical. Olivier says, I'm interested in your skepticism of mental load. So many wives in our circle seem to have legitimate grievances. Many people have legitimate grievances in this life. So do men. There's many men who are the overfunctioner. Mental load just means you're the primary one who thinks about the stuff in the house. The toilet paper needs to be refilled. The kids need to be signed up for camp. I need to balance the, the schedules of everybody. I need to get to work. I need to make money. I need to report to my boss. I need to check my email tonight, but it can't be during the scouts meeting. There's a million things that a person has to do in this world, And there are many situations, there especially used to be many situations where men used to be doing much less of the stuff in the home. I don't see it as much now. I see things more split. So in the people that I see, which are admittedly the people who opt to come in to therapy to think differently about things or coaching, they are more open-minded. So they're not going to be the people that are trapped in the 1950s dynamics. I just as often see men shoulder more of this burden than women. Realistically, in the terms of the data, it seems like men work about an hour a week more and women do men work an hour a day more and women do an hour a day more at home. And that would seem to balance out. But really, you got to think about it like this. When people are complaining, it's not usually the main thing that they're complaining about that's really the issue. It's usually that they don't feel loved by their partner. So just like when men complain about sex, I have podcasts. Sex is not about sex. This is about love. This is about, does the person put me first ever? Are we intimate? Are we close? Do we feel authentically connected? And for men, they think about physical intimacy as a proxy variable for all of that. And many women think about the household management as a proxy variable for that. The reality is that my favorite example is I used to work at a VA, and then I used to live closer to, where there were more people from the military in Annapolis, and there are women whose husbands are deployed that are happy, and there are ones that are not happy, and none of them has help with the stuff around the house, and certainly not with the mental load. Those men are not even on the continent. They're certainly not navigating the Google Calendar. But the ones who feel loved and appreciated and like they're on a team and like the guy misses them and values them, and when he comes home he says, my God, you did such a great job, those women are happier, and they are happy even though he's not helping. And the women whose husbands are deployed and they come back and they criticize and they try to take over and they, or they just lay around. Many of them have terrible issues, PTSD, depression, fine. But I'm just saying in terms of the relationship, they're not happy. So frequently, household labor it's a proxy variable for, do you feel loved and respected in the home? If you don't feel loved and respected, you could find a million examples of a million different things somebody doesn't do in any domain. If you do feel loved and respected, you look for the opposite. You look for examples of what they do. And so the two couples could be having sex once a week. One guy is happy, the other guy's not happy. Is that because one guy's more virile? No. It's because one guy feels loved. He feels connected to. He feels like his wife is trying in many ways. During this act itself, he may feel more love. Would he like to have sex more? Sure. But the other guy could be having sex once a week, and if he doesn't feel loved, respected, prioritized outside of that, then he'll start obsessing over that if he had more sex, then he'd feel better. But he wouldn't. He would just be having kind of disconnected sex against the backdrop of a disconnected marriage twice a week. Ooh. I have a podcast that you could get laid once more per week, and it wouldn't help. Or something like that. You could get laid once more per week, and then basically it wouldn't matter. And I've seen that happen so many times. And then finally, people have a single case design experiment and they finally realize it wasn't sex. Or the guy starts doing more chores and she finally realizes it wasn't chores. Obviously, is there ever a way to be a loving husband without doing chores? No. And I have a podcast on that. It says, there is no way to be a loving husband without doing chores. I could not be clearer on that. But also, the guys that I see, they do a lot of chores and their wives are still not happy because it isn't about chores. It isn't about sex. It isn't about these things Leslie was asking about, which were good points, things everybody asks about. It's culture or kids or whatever. It's about the relationship between the two people. And do you feel loved and respected and close? If you do, you could deal with a range of different things. You could not be living together if you couldn't, or one person could be disabled and they can't do any household chores at all, or they could have ADHD or depression and brain fog, and they can't do any of the mental load really, and you would still love them, you know? There's women who are depressed that love their husbands and think the relationship is the best thing in their life, and there's women with depression that blame it on their husbands. And same with men. Why? Because if you're not happy in your relationship, you feel like everything is a problem. Mike says, how can I tell the difference between lack of desire for me due to her age, perimenopause, and the fact that she disclosed a physical affair in couples therapy a month ago? Well, what? The affair lasted a year, but ended over a year ago. I had no clue about it. She disclosed it out of guilt and not wanting to hurt her best friend, me, anymore. We haven't had sex in 3 months. We're in therapy because of an emotional affair she had 2 years ago. So now there's 2 affairs that I knew about. We have sex once every month or so, but way more often before the affairs and before perimenopause. Okay, this isn't about perimenopause. That's not about perimenopause. Most women in perimenopause don't cheat. So this is a different thing. This is something where she lied to you twice, 2 different long-term relationships. If you want to try to repair, then try to repair. But this does not have to do with like her desire for you or whatever the case may be. She made a choice to have a pattern of infidelity. So that's about her. And she's trying to fill up some need for attention or for love or for something in her life. Not to say you don't love her, but in some way she does not feel enough. She feels like there's some spot, some hole in her, and she's trying to fill up that black hole with these repeated infidelities. So I would not go into the rabbit hole of figuring out, is her hormonal desire. No, she cheated twice. That's the preeminent thing. This would be like if a woman said to me, is he an andropause because he hit me? I don't care about andropause then. I care that he hit you. Right? So he did something very bad to you and you're still staying in this situation. And then maybe you got to think about why you're staying in this situation since it happened 2 times in 2 years, it seems. Emotional affair is just as hurtful as a physical affair. So hopefully you are in your own treatment, therapy, and you are figuring out. Usually people stay in these situations when they keep repeating because of self-esteem issues in themselves originating from before the relationship. And that would be a good thing for you to figure out. And I'm sorry that all happened to you. Unrelated to your situation, yes, women in perimenopause have less desire frequently. They don't, though, go have multiple affairs because of that. That is like a separate issue. Quite unrelated. In fact, most women do not cheat when they have no desire. They just think, oh, that's kind of over now, which is also hurtful, but probably not as hurtful as 2 affairs in 2 years. That's really bad. That's really bad for you. Whatever self-esteem issues you came in with are now times a million, right? Because of this. So, I would go figure that stuff out. And you said you're in couples therapy, I think, but you need to be in individual therapy, right? To figure out the impact on you and what this did to your confidence, which I'm guessing was not high to begin with. And you got to figure that stuff out. But, good questions. Does anybody else have a question? Perimenopause is a big one people ask about. Infidelity is a big one people ask about. And if y'all ever need a therapist or a coach, remember my practice, Best Life Behavioral Health. We got lots of great people. I just put out another contract to hire a male therapist today. He's great, very philosophical guy, very existential, will appeal to my intellectual fan base. So he's going to be good. If you follow me, you'll see me put him out and market him pretty soon. I have time for one more question. If anybody has one more question before I go, then I will take this and I will do my little clips from it too, so you will be able to watch this in perpetuity, at least as long as Facebook keeps it up. They don't keep the lives up anymore. So that's kind of, this is here, then it's gone, unless I try to keep it and clip it and stuff. But I got time for one more question if anybody has. Stuart, my wife has asked me to leave or has wanted to separate 3 times. On the third time I started to leave, she then asked me not to leave. Let's talk, but doesn't want to talk that much. No sex for over 1.5 years. And doesn't want to talk to a therapist. She feels like it's a waste of time and money. How many kids do you have, Stuart? Because I know what I'm hoping you say and what everybody else is hoping you say. How many, Stuart? Tell me. Mike says she has all the symptoms of perimenopause. I know, Mike, she definitely does if she's in her 40s, because that's how time works and that's how age works. That is separate from her having 2 affairs. I'm also in perimenopause. I'm not having 2 affairs. Most women I know are in perimenopause. They're not having affairs. In fact, Mike, only what percent of women cheat? Like, so low. It's like maybe like 12% cheat and 20% of men. So the rates for both are lower. But no, most women do not cheat in perimenopause. Oh, you have 2 older children, Stuart? All right, so, it's kind of, how much older? We talking out of the house? Because, you could work on it. You could get into therapy. She said she wants to leave, like, a whole bunch. You have a sexless marriage and you don't talk. So, like, obviously, it can't stay how it is for you to be happy. As a Hail Mary, you could try to go to couples therapy, and try to see what's going on there. But, it also may be that things are just really disconnected and they happen for a long time, and she got scared when she actually told you to go, that you were going to go, and maybe it would disrupt the family, the kids, who knows. It hit her different, but it doesn't seem like she wants to talk or connect, and she's saying she doesn't want to go to therapy. So it's kind of, all right, one is out recently, son is still here. Okay, so she could have thought to herself, why would we screw up his senior year, or like whatever the case may be. And that's a point, right? Somebody's kid is in their junior or senior year. Many couples decide to stay together because you don't want to rock the boat for the child, and then you separate after that. Both men and women do that, even when they know that they want to go. So you could force her into couples therapy in some way and say that you're only staying if she goes into couples therapy, or you could wait it out, or, and here's the winning vote from my perspective, you could go into individual work and figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life, because this marriage does not seem like it's going to potentially work out. We don't really know why you're staying in a situation where she asks you to leave repeatedly and doesn't engage with you and doesn't sleep with you. Again, just like the other dude, there may be self-esteem issues at play here. You may be very conflict avoidant. I don't know. I'm not speaking to you in depth, but I would certainly think that it's worthy of some introspection. Why you're staying. And maybe you're staying because your kid is about to go, and you also don't want to mess them up or cause stress. Okay, that's fine. If you want to do that, that's being a good dad. Good. But, then prepare yourself that when he's out, both of you may turn to each other and say, all right, well, it is what it is, and this is done, because all the signs are there. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. This was enjoyable. A lot of you engaged. The Midlife Women's Group is coming up. It's starting October 16th. It's going to be Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern. If you are a woman between 40 and 55, then you are probably going to like the group. I don't know exactly what we're going to do, but we're all smart women who are going to talk. You have to apply. I ask your favorite book. Be prepared. And, strong Roman Catholic. All right, so go talk to a Catholic therapist about your options, think about your life, Stuart. You only get one. You only get one life, and nobody deserves to be miserable, okay? You may have done your duty. You stayed with your family. She stayed with your family. Not everything is meant to last forever. And you don't know that. You should talk to somebody who you trust, who is wired like you, who, has the same religious values, and talk to them. And if that doesn't work, talk to somebody secular, because frequently we get people who are religious, talk to the religious people, then, those people they only say the party line, right? And so then they come but it would have to be your individual preference, obviously, what would resonate with you. But I do definitely recommend some deeper work on that. Uh, Mike, could her body have changed in the year plus since she last cheated? Mike, she cheated. She cheated 2 times. So she wasn't happy. She wasn't happy for those 2 times. She's not been happy in years because she was cheating, right? So she didn't. Nothing. You can get desire in the honeymoon stage with a new partner, with an affair partner, and that's very exciting. But you and her have not had a good relationship since for a while, for at least 2 years. So again, Mike, you should be in therapy. Talk to somebody about this, okay? And I'll talk to everybody soon. Have a great day, guys. Bye bye.